Good afternoon and welcome to the IPAI Legal and Tax Summit 2009. The focus thus far has been on business practices, on competitive practices, anti-monopoly practices, antitrust practices, laws, regulations, taxes in the sector. The final session incorporates a new focus that IPAI has found over the past 2 years, and that incorporated in the last counter-terror event that we did, where we are discussing the security of energy assets and how to minimize business disruption or any other business continuity function that can arise thereof. With me is Captain Raghuraman, CEO of Mahindra SSG. Welcome to the show, Captain.
Thank you.
So we'd like to know, given your long experience as someone who has been trained at the Indian Military Academy, has been a part of the Indian Army, has also come into the private sector and is a decision maker in the private sector, understands the way the private sector functions. So in light of the recent threats, the government has received recent threats that have been passed on to the power and the oil and gas sectors. What do you think should be done to sensitize senior management across these various companies as to the real level of threat involved and what they should do, how much they should actually spend, what should be their action thereafter to actually counter these threats?
Okay, it's a complex problem, and unfortunately, it's not as simple oftentimes as the government giving warnings to the energy sector, companies which are operating in the energy sector, and asking them to be more careful. Because like most warnings, they keep coming all the time. They're not very specific. They don't they don't give you enough information to constructively do something starting Monday morning. It's a general advice of be careful. Now that becomes a challenge to be careful for a prolonged period of time, to be on high alert for a prolonged period of time. So to my mind, approaching security with an intent which is incident driven or which is driven based on if something happens in Bombay and so the whole nation goes on high alert, terrorists are caught and some documents are seized and then the nation gives out warnings to its critical infrastructure. This spiky nature of preparedness is oftentimes completely useless and really more expensive because everything happens in a knee-jerk reaction. Technology is purchased, goes waste. Because it goes waste, there is a belief that there is no point in purchasing technology next time or gearing up. I think it has to be done more from a qualitative perspective, where you begin by realizing that the energy and the resources. Today, this nation is running on whichever number you believe, whether it's between 6 to 10%. But the juggernaut of a country is running on a pipeline, and that pipeline is the energy pipeline, whether it's in the form of power, resource, and it's in any case strained. It's like a person breathing through an oxygen pipe, which is in any case constricted.
Right.
If that were to be cut off, then it's in weeks that the nation would come to its knees. And given the fact that energy and its associated crisis is so critical to the development programs that we are doing, forget about national security, but even the basic development programs that we are doing, it is sometimes uncanny that corporates and the state chooses to limit its preparedness to issuing warnings. So, to answer your question, does giving a warning need a merit sensitivity from the management to say, okay, just because I've been given a warning, I'm going to take 3% of my revenues this year or profits this year and invest that into security? I think the answer is no.
Okay.
But if they were to look at it strategically and say, if I have to be in this business for the next 30 years, then I have to make a certain amount of investments in security. And maybe certain instruments have to be introduced by the government, like tax benefits. If you make investments, the amortization of that investment or that capex expenditure is given tax sops.
Right.
Or if you have inclusive defense in depth, which essentially means if you are in a remote area and you facilitate local employment, you facilitate local education, then you are creating a stakeholder community which therefore creates a defense in depth for you, then you are given those kind of soft benefits. Such framework tools have to be put in place. So such policy levers have to be put in place. Otherwise, issuing a warning and expecting somebody, issuing a warning is a covering your backside mentality. It says, "Humne to bola tha." But that doesn't mean anything. So what? It's like saying, be careful when you cross the road. What does it mean? It means nothing. It's a motherhood statement. It has no relevance. You really can't action on it. So I think if we are going to be serious about this, and we ought to be, because this is going to be one of the most lucrative targets for the terrorists to attack, for the bad guys to attack, for a foreign nation to attack. If an enemy nation wants to bring India down to its knees, it's going to attack the power sector, it's going to attack the energy, it's going to attack the oil reserves that this country holds for it to be able to fight its battle. We have the third largest army in the world, but that army has to be fueled. That army has to, the machines have to have fuel in their belly. So in any case, I think the threat that we are looking at is not somebody blowing an oil pipeline. It is a series of coordinated strikes maybe. It's even a dirty bomb, a dirty nuclear bomb, which is being hopefully thwarted until now. But who knows, that might be one of a refinery being taken out completely. Those are the kind of attacks that could be in the offing, and therefore the response also has to be at a strategic level.
Right. You were talking about inclusive growth. Now, is that a part of the new security paradigm that your company can offer? Is that an area that a security company can consult in? Or is that purely a CSR, or does it come in the realm of do goodness or something?
Firstly, I hate this term CSR. It has that shades of do goodness.
Okay.
Nobody's doing anything good here. Okay, it's not about doing good. Doing good makes it sound like that I'm earning this much of profit and revenues and I'm making money, so I give a percentage of that to you and you should be happy with that. It's not about that. Inclusive growth, if there's a term that you want to give it CSI, corporate social investment. You are making an investment into the community from whom you are going to get your revenues. I mean, it's not new. You have got Tata Nagar, you have Jamshedpur, where corporates have set up an enclave to protect and nurture their employees. The paradigm that we are suggesting is just like that. You should also nurture your customers, and your customer happens to be a citizen of India. In most cases, for oil and gas, it happens to be a citizen of India who has been largely ignored by the state and the central administration for years together. Now, when you involve them in your growth, when you lay down a certain amount of jobs that you will offer to them, when you set up schools and educational establishments for their children, I think it's beyond CSR. It is making sure that you are building a stakeholder population around you for whom it's important that this plant continues to run properly, that this plant does not have disruption, that whenever an insurgent even looks towards it, they feel that their own family livelihood is threatened. Now, if we do that, it's a completely different paradigm shift. Obviously, it's a paradigm shift. Today, most security paradigms are structured, and unfortunately, a lot of it happens because we seek to take a model that works in the US or a model that works in Israel and try to implement it in India. It's a different paradigm because those models are very fortress models. We are inside, you're outside. Right? And we will prevent you from coming inside, which is the US model, that's the global model, and to a certain extent a very Boolean kind of security paradigm. We can't function in that paradigm. We need a paradigm which says that you are inside. This is you. We and you are one. And to bring that about, it requires a very, very different and a complex framework, but highly doable. And ironically, doable at far lower costs. But it just needs a shift in the mind frame.